Robert Durst is present, Mr. DeGuerin, and Mr. Ray. And we have Mr. Bailey and Mr. Henderson at council table, also Mr. Milius. Mr. Henderson, you may resume playing the recording at the point where you left off.
20 minutes left only.
It appeared that the series caused him a lot of problems, yes.
Ma'am, how many, you said the series caused a lot of problems, ma'am. Would you agree to what Mr. Durst was telling you was his words and his actions are what caused the problem?
No, he had a problem after series, after the Jinx, and that's what caused his problem.
Ma'am, you listened on those first 5 episodes, you heard numerous statements from Mr. Durst of what he said, correct?
Yes.
You heard him talking about Kathy's disappearance, correct?
No, I don't remember that.
So you don't remember him, ma'am, admitting during the Jinx that in fact he had made up the entire scenario of Kathy Durst calling him when she made it back allegedly to her city. You did not know that?
I have no knowledge of that.
So now it's your position that you watched a miniseries about a man you were dating, and
I wasn't dating at that time.
is it your testimony as you sit here that as you are having your conversation with Mr. Durst, you've watched the Jinx, you've listened to him admit that he manufactured a fake conversation with his missing wife. You heard him say that in the Jinx. Is that correct?
No, I don't remember him saying that in the Jinx. I don't remember him saying that at all.
Now, when you're watching the Jinx, would you agree that you had more than a passing interest in?
Yes.
Is it fair to say, ma'am, in your life there have been miniseries made about only one person that you personally knew?
Maybe. I could have known somebody else. I had to rethink that.
As far as you can tell, sitting here, would you agree Mr. Durst is the only person that you know that had a miniseries that was made that you watched on television?
Are you referring to in this court?
I'm referring to in this court.
Yeah, what was your question?
Okay, now, what I'm asking you is, would you agree that Bob Durst, the only person that you're aware of that you know, personally know, who's had a miniseries made about him?
No, I could have known someone else.
You could have. Who might that be?
I would have to rethink that.
Feel free, rethink it.
It's not going to just pop up.
Ma'am, do you want to change your answer on that, or do you want me to rethink?
I'll rethink.
Okay, you let us know when you're done thinking.
Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck, that's somebody that you know?
Yeah.
Did you and Mr. Selleck ever meet?
No, I just know him from people in the past.
So, now would you agree that in terms of somebody that you have had a personal relationship?
Okay, you got it. No. Are you happy? You're badgering me. No.
Ma'am, I'd be happy if you would answer my questions. Ma'am?
No.
Okay. So, and my question, ma'am, would be, does it seem reasonable to you that given someone you had a personal relationship with, who you had visited their home, who you had gone out on dinner dates or whatever you want to call it, who you knew was a suspect for many years in the disappearance of his wife, has now said on national TV, admitted, I lied about what I said happened with Kathy Durst after she allegedly came back to New York City. You're telling me, ma'am, that that's a fact that you just don't remember?
I don't remember that. That's the truth. I do
So
not
now-
remember.
So now, do you believe, if you're sitting there, do you think it would be reasonable for someone in your position to have an interest after hearing what happened with Mr. Durst changing his story? Is that something that you believe someone who is dating him, has a relation with him, that would be a relevant subject to discuss?
I wasn't dating him at that time.
So, man, is it still your position that Bob Durst has never told you anything further about Susan or Kathy or Morris Black other than what you testified to?
Yes.
Now, in the conversations that you had with Mr. Durst, he's expressed at points in time anger with the results of what happened with his interviews with Mr. Jarecki and Smirk. Is that correct?
Maybe not anger, maybe remorse, or not remorse, but I think he had second thoughts about whether he should have done that.
Right now, and when you say remorse or second thoughts, you would agree that what Mr. Durst has expressed to you is not, oh my God, they're lying, I never said those things. What he has said to you is, I regret that I told them what I told them. Isn't that true?
No,
How is that not true, ma'am?
because he's never said that in those words.
What words, ma'am, has he said? Let me back up. Has Mr. Durst ever said to you, you know what? Those things that Jarecki and Smirling put on TV, I never said them. Has he ever said that to you?
Everything that he said is already recorded.
Now, I'm going to ask you again. Could the witness be instructed to answer my question?
Please listen carefully to the question and answer only the question.
Now, isn't it true that Mr. Durst has never said to you, I did not say those things that they put on TV
No,
to Andrew Jarecki and Mark Smirling?
no,
He's never said that, correct? Is that correct?
correct.
Did you ever ask her, ma'am, oh my God, Bob, are those things true?
No,
You didn't want to know, did you?
no,
In fact, ma'am, your concern when you spoke to Mr. Durst is, how can you get that $1 million? Is that true, ma'am?
no.
No further questions.
Just a moment, direct, question.
Oh, that's fine.
Just a few questions. With regard to the $1 million conversation, did you take what he said that as something that was going to happen or something that was not going to happen?
It was not going to happen.
Did you take that as something that you were looking to have happen or something you were not looking to have happen?
I was not looking for it to happen.
Something that was important or not important? Important or not important?
It was not important.
Now, you were asked some questions about, talking to the defendant about the three issues of the wife, the trial in Texas, and the friend who was shot. Let me ask you something. During the time that you knew Mr. Durst, how did he treat you?
He treated me like a gentleman very well, and I have nothing bad to say.
And based upon the way he was treating you, did you formulate some idea of what kind of person he was?
Yes,
What kind of person did you decide he was?
he was a good, kind person.
Now, you've seen this business from the Jinx about the misspelling of Beverly. You had a conversation with the defendant in which he said something about, I messed up or something like that, and talking to these people from the Jinx. Do you recall that?
Yes,
And we you've talked in the past, and you've answered questions in the past, that from your perspective, did you think that the Jinx was trying to make it look good or make it look bad?
It was trying to make it look bad.
Once you were talking to him on tape, did you think it was advisable for you to be asking him specific questions about his case?
No.
And is that based upon the fact that he was being charged with something, or is that based upon some feeling that he was guilty?
It's based upon that everything is recorded.
You asked a couple of questions about causing himself a problem in talking to the Jinx. And the counsel asked you some questions about statements that he made about this Beverly business. When he said that originally that he caused himself some problems in speaking to the people with the Jinx, did you consider as being the problems that you caused other things such as the bad publicity that the Jinx had produced about him, and what we talked about before, that they were trying to push him as being a guilty person?
Yes.
Matt, you said, I believe you believe Mr. Durst is a good person, is that correct?
Yes.
Again, you are now aware, ma'am, that he is admitted to dismembering Morris Black's body. Is that correct?
Correct.
Did that affect your opinion?
No.
You're aware, ma'am, that he has been, you know about the end of episode 6 of the Jinx, right? You know what happens at the end of the last episode of the Jinx, ma'am?
I don't remember.
Do you remember anything about a bathroom and audio?
Oh, okay.
What do you remember about that?
That they recorded him talking to himself.
Right, do you remember the subject he was talking about? Finances, baseball,
He was talking about what he paid on the Jinx.
Now, do you remember him saying, ma'am, kill them all, of course? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Ma'am, does that affect your opinion? Mr. Durst announcing that he killed them all. Does that affect your opinion as to whether or not Mr. Durst is a good person?
No.
So we brought up dismemberment and murdering people. Can you tell me, is there anything then you could think of that Mr. Durst could admit to that would change your view, your assessment of Mr. Durst? Did that change your opinion?
No.
All right, I'm going to play another clip. I just want to see if this changes your opinion.
Yes.
Grab Kathy. It's time to go, let's go. And we talked about the various stories about that. Tell me what you remember about going back in there.
I remember grabbing her by her hair and grabbing her arm, getting the coat. We're going.
And the grabbing her by her hair part, how did that enter your mind or
No, I went back in to get Kathy. Kathy, it's time to go. Well, just another, no, we're going.
and from your standpoint, was it that you were pissed off, you were angry?
Yes, I was pissed off. She agreed to leave after a certain period of time, and now she's not doing it. She's wrong. I'm right. Let's go.
And you described that there were a couple of theories about whether you pulled her by her hair, whether it choked
Where I pulled a chunk of her hair out. And I remember grabbing her by the coat and her arm and the hair. Whether her hair came out or not, I don't know, but I dragged her out of the house.
Do you remember the feeling of that happening as we're sitting here? Do you remember the feeling of walking into the house, going to get her? Is that...
It's total anger. We're not doing this. With me being the dominant one, we agree on 2 hours, it's gonna be 2 hours, not gonna be 2.5 hours or 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's time to go, you agreed to go, let's go. The same thing with having a child. You agreed that we're gonna have children, you got yourself pregnant, you wanna get an abortion, you can get an abortion. You wanna have a child, you're gonna get divorced.
Ma'am,
Yes,
you've seen that before, correct?
I am now remembering it. I didn't before you put it on the TV.
Ma'am, does that sound like somebody you would describe as a gentleman?
That scene was not a gentleman.
That scene? You mean Mr. Durst admitting to domestic violence on his wife, grabbing her by the hair, and not sure whether he yanked the hair out or just fell out? Is it the scene, ma'am, or is it his conduct?
I was not a witness to that.
Ma'am, I didn't ask if you were a witness to it. You heard Mr. Durst admit that's what he did, correct?
Yes.
You heard Mr. Durst admit that he dismembered Morris Black. And yet after all this, you sit in court responding to Mr. Ray's question saying, Mr. Durst is in essence, he's a good man. Is that still your position, ma'am?
It's my opinion, yes.
Sure, one more, ma'am. I'm going to take one last attempt at seeing if there's anything that I can show you that will change your opinion.
And Your Honor, this would be both 136 and 136A.
Do you remember meeting her family?
Yeah, that is one of the major regrets in my life is the way I treated her family, her mother. I mean, they've never met anything like me before. This guy with piles of money and terrible manners. I used to feed the dog when I was sitting at the table. I used to talk about making love to Kathy at the dining room table in front of her mother. It's absolutely impossible.
Ma'am,
Yes.
does that sound like words of conduct of a gentleman and person of character?
No, not that scene.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you again. I want you to consider the following facts. And I'm going to ask you anyway your opinion. Mr. Durst, you were aware as a suspect in the disappearance the death of his wife, has admitted that he lied about what happened after she disappeared. He's admitted that he killed and dismembered Morris Black. He has been caught in a bathroom saying, killed them all, of course. He has discussed how he pulled Kathy out of the house by the hair because he wanted to leave. And that it didn't matter to him whether the hair came out or not. And now he's discussed how he enjoyed talking about having sex with Kathy at the dinner table in front of her mother. Now, when you consider these specific instances, does that change your opinion as to whether Mr. Durst is a person of good character and a gentleman?
No.
Okay, my last question, ma'am. Is there anything, then? We've talked murder, domestic violence, just rudeness. What could possibly Mr. Durst do or say that would change your opinion? Is there anything? Is there anything, ma'am?
No.
Thank you. No further questions.
There's no prosecutor.
Very briefly now, I just have one area. Counsel brought up, I guess you call it the bathroom conversation in the Jinx, with Mr. Durst being on his wiretap in the bathroom. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
How did you take that? Did you take that as being real or sarcastic?
I didn't take it as real because it's part of a Hollywood series that they recorded, and I didn't know that was part of the acting part.
So when you say did, you did or did not take it as real?
I did not. It's a Hollywood series that they're recording, and they can record and say anything they want on there. It doesn't have to be true.
Thank you.
Anything else? Please, court be excused. No objection, you're now excused.
Thank you.
Your Honor, we have exhibits.
Yes, Mr. Henderson?
There were 14 audio clips that Ms. Clarke was impeached with. Each of them have transcripts. The transcripts that we asked to be marked for identification is people's 206C through 206P. The exhibit sheet describing what's in the video versus new exhibits for trial. That's a 3-page document asked to be marked 206B. I'll just briefly read that for the record. 206C is a 3-page transcript, which was People's 123A. 206D is a 2-page transcript, which was People's 124A. People's 206E is a 2-page transcript, which was People's 125A. People's 206F is a 3-page transcript, which was People's 126A. People's 206G is a 2-page transcript, which was People's 127A. People's 206H is a 3-page transcript, which was People's 128A. People's 206I is a 3-page transcript, which was People's 129A. People's 206J is a 2-page transcript, which was People's 130A. People's 206K is a 2-page transcript, which was People's 131A. People's 206L is a 5-page transcript, which was People's 132A. People's 206M is a 2-page transcript, which was People's 133A. People's 206N is a 4-page transcript, which was People's 134A. People's 206O is a 2-page transcript, which was People's 135A. And finally, People's 206P is a 2-page transcript. In the video, that's People's 136.
Thank you. Mr. Loon, what will you be presenting next?
People call Susan Giordano, Your Honor. Get her right now.
It's taken her a minute to get herself together.
All right.
Remain standing and raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Please be seated. For the record, please state and spell your first and last name.
Susan Giordano, S-U-S-A-N, middle initial T, last name Giordano, G-I-O-R-D-A-N-O.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you so that you can be heard to speak directly into that microphone. You can tilt it up, you can pull it closer to you,
Okay.
and why don't you do those
Okay.
things? Yeah, you talk right into that microphone.
Okay, good, better? You can all hear me?
We'll see how it goes, but, all right. Mr. Lewin, you may proceed.
And for, I'm going to try to keep my voice up. If my voice is down, if people can raise their hand. I can see you guys now because you're not behind me. So I'll glance over there to make sure I'm keeping my voice up. Ms. Giordano, if you don't hear me either, because I'm not used to the mask either, if you don't hear me, let me know and I will repeat myself, okay?
Yes.
And the one other thing is that I know it's a little, maybe a little uncomfortable. Pull that mask up high so it doesn't slip down. So otherwise,
Better?
I'll have to keep reminding you. Like
Good.
that, that's good. All right.
If you pinch the little nose thing on top, it'll.
Okay. I want to,
Just
yeah,
pinch
I want
it
to be.
together. There's a little wire thing.
Okay. Oh, you're right.
Yeah, good.
You are
Yeah.
correct. Okay. Better.
May I begin, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ma'am, where do you currently reside? I don't mean your address, but the city and state are sufficient.
Campbell Hall, New York.
And how long have you lived in Campbell Hall, New York?
13 years?
And is it fair to say that you're from the East Coast?
Yes.
And when did you get to California? Meaning, when did you came to California yesterday? It's not a trick question.
No, okay. Yes, I flew in yesterday.
Okay. And what do you do for a living?
An art teacher,
And how long have you been doing that?
10 years.
Do you recognize, I'm going to point to this person right here, indicating the defendant. Can you tell me who that is?
Robert Durst.
And I want to ask you, and Mr. Durst, for the record, has just lifted his hand up and waved to the witness, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Ma'am, do you consider yourself, as you sit up there today, to be an unbiased witness?
Yes.
Do you agree that you have strong feelings towards Mr. Durst?
Yes.
Do you believe that in any way those strong feelings potentially prevent you from being as unbiased as you would like?
I am unbiased. Yes, I am totally unbiased.
Let me ask you,
My
if
feelings are not.
you have several children, is that correct?
Yes.
I want you to assume for a moment, if one of your children were sitting in Mr. Durst's seat, would you still consider yourself to be unbiased? Grounds?
You may answer.
Yes.
Would you consider yourself to be unbiased even if one of your children were sitting there?
Yes.
So in essence, your position is that no matter who is on trial, it doesn't matter for you if you're sitting up there, you are a completely unbiased witness.
Yes.
How would you describe your current relationship with Robert Durst?
We were very dear friends. We don't speak very often now, but he's a very dear friend of mine.
And when you say friend, would that be the extent of what you would call the relationship?
It's platonic. Yes, is that?
And when you say platonic, can you define what you mean by that?
We don't have a relationship in that where other people have, like, we're best friends. I don't understand. Platonic is best friends with someone.
I mean, obviously, Mr. Durst is in custody, so you could not have a sexual relationship with him now because he's in custody, correct?
And I did not in the past.
So if I were to ask you, do you consider you and Mr. Durst to have in any way a romantic relationship, what would be your answer?
We do not have a romantic relationship.
Have you ever had a romantic relationship?
No.
And have you always in the past said that your relationship with Mr. Durst was purely platonic?
Yes.
You've been asked this numerous times, is that correct, the nature of the relationship? Oh, you need to answer out loud because the court reporter, you're nodding, but she can't.
Can you repeat that?
Sure.
Yes, already.
You've been asked numerous times in the past that exact question, the nature of your relationship, and you've said that it's platonic, is that right?
Yes.
You said it was platonic when you were interviewed on March 16, 2015, correct?
Correct.
You said it was platonic when you were interviewed on April 18, 2015, correct?
Correct.
You described it as platonic when you testified in court under oath on February 15, 2017. Is that correct?
Correct.
as you sit here right now, ma'am, I just want to give you one more opportunity. Is it still your position
Yes.
that, well, I need to finish my question. I think I know what the answer is going to be, but let me just finish if you can. So the court reporter, so what you're doing, and it's completely normal, but witnesses, when you understand where my question is going, you're kind of cutting me off and I can't finish. And the problem is the court reporter has to get it down. So if you can wait completely till I stop talking. Do you understand?
Yes.
So I just want to ask you, if I say right now, do you in any way want to change your assessment of the relationship as to being more than just friends or platonic?
No.
Do you love Bob Durst?
Absolutely.
Have you told him repeatedly that you love him?
Absolutely.
Do you tell him repeatedly in phone calls that you miss him?
Yes.
Do you talk about in the numerous phone calls you've had with him spending the rest of your lives together?
Yes.
Do you talk about living together in the same house together?
Yes.
And is it your opinion, ma'am, that that is the definition of a platonic, just friendly relationship?
Yes.
Have you previously told Andrew Jarecki? You spoke to him 2 different times, is that correct?
Spoke to Andrew Durecki a lot.
You were filmed speaking to him 2 different times, is that correct?
Yes.
And you knew the cameras were going, it was filmed, correct?
Yes.
One of those was on March 10th, 2014, correct?
Oh.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the exact date, but yes, if you...
And the other one was literally the premiere, the night of episode 6, the finale, the day after Bob Durst had been arrested. Is that right?
Yes.
Do you recall telling Mr. Jarecki in 2014 that there was nobody who was closer to Bob Durst, including Bob Durst's wife, than you?
I never mentioned his wife.
Did you
so
say?
I don't know.
Did you say specifically, ma'am, where you asked the following question? But it seems like there's nobody closer, from what I can tell. It seems like there's nobody closer than you. And you responded, no. Meaning you're the closest one to him, correct?
I would, as friend, we never brought up his wife. So I think I am very, very close. And I do feel that I was closer to him than most people.
Well,
I mean, he's closer to me than anyone else. He was my closest friend. He was the person I went to.
And you actually testified, ma'am, on February 15, 2017. You were asked these questions, and you said that absolutely, although you love him, you would not refer to him as a boyfriend. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, the testimony that you testified to, that took place on February 15, 2017. And that was in front of Judge Wyndham, seated to your left, correct? To your right.
My right.
To your right, thank you. And ma'am, at the time that you testified, I want you to listen to this question very carefully. Were you completely truthful in all of your answers?
Yes.
Now, during your prior testimony, ma'am, do you recall that you would be asked a question, and then pretty repeatedly, you would be confronted with clips, audio clips of what you've said before? Is that correct?
Correct.
As you sit here today, are you thinking about whether or not, when I ask a question, that I'm going to pop a clip up there?
No, not really.
You have an attorney here in court today who is an attorney from New York, is that right?
Yes.
And that attorney has been basically representing you in this case since shortly after Mr. Durst was arrested in March of 2015, correct?
Yes.
Who's paying for that attorney?
Actually, that was supposed to come from money that Bob had gave me a long time ago. And he hasn't been paid as of yet. The rest of, I didn't.
Ma'am, would the answer be
everything.
that Bob Durst is paying for that attorney?
Well, it came from money from, but I still owe the lawyer money right now. I don't.
Ma'am,
So
is
I
it
don't-
your understanding that you will be paying the lawyer the money out of your pocket, or that Mr. Durst will be paying or reimbursing?
Honestly, my lawyer didn't even ask anything as of now, so I don't know. I
I'm not-
don't know yet.
Ma'am, I'm not asking what your lawyer asked you. I'm saying, is it your understanding, as you sit here today, is it your belief that Mr. Durst is paying for your lawyer?
Yes.
And in fact, was your lawyer present? You and I have met before, is that right?
Yes.
I flew out to New York with investigators, and we interviewed you way back in April of 2015. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was your lawyer present for that interview?
Yes.
Now, I want to go way back, and I want you to tell us, how did you and Bob Durst originally meet?
Way back, I started working at an ad agency, and I did want to meet Mr. Durst, and there's a mutual friend that we had, and
Let me stop you. Who's the mutual friend?
Nick Chavin. Nick and I worked at the same agency. I didn't work for him at the time. So I knew Nick Chavin, and I wanted to meet Bob Durst. I was single, and I wanted to meet with him. Bob was very busy at the time. So it took me a very long time. When he was in Texas, I finally wrote to him, reminded him
Wait,
who
I want to stop you, ma'am.
I was.
The time that you're describing, when was this approximately? What year, when you first met him?
First time I wanted to go out was 1987.
And how old were you back then?
I was 21.
And fair to say, Mr. Durst would have been 44, is that right?
Yes.
And you had an interest in Mr. Durst, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you know that Mr. Durst was wealthy?
Not at 21, no. 21, no. I didn't really, I just knew he was a friend of Nick and he was a client, and that was it.
So you're working at this ad agency with Nick Chavin,
Yes.
and you agree that Nick and Bob were very close friends, correct?
Yes.
And you had an interest in dating Mr. Durst, but you had no idea at the time that Mr. Durst was from one of the wealthiest families in all of New York.
That's right.
When did you learn that he was as wealthy as he is?
When I wanted to go out with him, I must have been, it was a few years later. I mean, I was in the art department, so I didn't do any financials, and there was a lot of clients, so that's it. I was the art person.
Did you know when you first met Bob Durst, did you know that his wife had disappeared?
Yes.
Did you tell Nick Chavin that you were interested in dating Bob?
I told Nick in an elevator in 1987 that I wanted to meet with him, and he said...
Meet with him, meaning
with
Bob Durst?
I'm sorry, yes. I wanted to meet Bob. And he said to me, well, he's kind of married. And I asked him what that meant. And he said that his wife had disappeared, but made a kind of a joke out of it, like she left him.
And ma'am,
So,
what was it that attracted you at age 21 to this man more than twice your age who you didn't know was wealthy?
okay, well, I mean, a lot of people in my family are a lot older, so I don't think age really mattered. I just knew that Nick would talk high, he would speak about Bob highly, and I knew he was good friends, and I knew Nick, so from his personality, and what I've learned from everyone, that Bob was a lot of fun, and
At this point, though, you do not know that Bob is part of a billionaire.
swear, no.
Leading the witness.
Okay.
It's foundational to impeachment, Your Honor.
Well, just a moment. Let me look at this. Let me look. You may be seated. Just a moment. So, sustain.
At this point, ma'am, did you know that Bob Durst was part of a billionaire real estate family.
I knew he was part of a family. I had no idea how much. I didn't.
Did you,
not.
ma'am, did you know that he was wealthy?
No, I didn't know what they owned. I just knew there was a real estate family, just as many other, I could rattle off 10 other clients that we had. I wouldn't know. I could name 10 more real estate development companies that we worked with at the time. And no, I don't know how big the family is or how much each individual person is worth. I was 21.
Ma'am, isn't it true that you were aware from Nick Chavin at the time that Bob Durst was
Calls for hearsay.
your biggest client, not for the truth of the matter asserted?
Sustained. I'm sorry, not on those grounds. Hold on.
Ma'am,
Yes.
did you hear my question?
It's the leading part, not the hearsay part.
Yes. Wait, it's sustained on leading grounds?
Leading, yes, hearsay, no. So just to ask directly.
Ma'am,
Yes.
at the time,
Yes.
was Bob Durst one of the, if not the biggest, one of the biggest clients of that firm?
I would say there's 3 other companies that were just about the same, like, that did a lot more advertising. So, yeah, there was a couple of others.
So, ma'am, so you knew at the time then that Bob Durst was part of a family that was one of Nick Chavin's firm's biggest clients. Is that correct?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the
That-
relevance of this as
Okay.
it relates to the allegations.
Okay, overruled.
Well,
Overruled.
we have a sidebar, Your Honor, because I want to get it.
Okay, yeah, sidebar, fine.
Thanks.
Fine. Either on or off the record.
We can be off the record.
Okay? We'll just be a moment, folks.
You tell. Your Honor?
You may continue with your examination.
So, your original relationship, when you first met Mr. Durst, very shortly after at age 21, you were interested in him romantically. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did the two of you, you said you brought that up to Nick Chavin, did the two of you, you and Mr. Durst, end up dating back at that time?
No.
Did you end up even having a conversation with Mr. Durst where you, in essence, expressed your interest?
In a timeline?
Yeah, back then.
Back then, no.
And so you were, at 21, were you single back then?
Yes.
And are you single today?
No.
And have you been, how many times have you been married between now and then?
3.
Okay, and so this is before any of the marriages and before you were involved with anybody at that time?
Yes.
Okay, so at that point in time, you and Mr. Durst don't end up dating. Do the two of you continue to have any contact, or is it just through the work that Nick Chavin was doing for Mr.
It was
Durst?
just the work.
How often would you see Bob Durst back then?
Not often. Maybe once a year, and I'm trying to think of the year. I had stopped working for a while at the agency, so it wasn't until I wrote to him when he was in Texas. So, no, I didn't see him very often at all.
So did you have any personal conversations with Mr. Durst other than maybe hello or, you know, goodbye, bringing him in to see?
No, not until later.
Okay, so that's a lot of years that go by, is that right?
Yes.
How was it that the two of you became reacquainted or reconnected?
I wrote to him
And when was this?
when he was in Galveston.
And would it be fair to say then that that would be sometime between November 30th, I'm sorry, sometime between in 2002 or 2003?
Okay, yeah, it sounds exactly.
At that time, were you single or married?
I was single.
And had you already been married by then?
I was single till a couple of years after. So
No, so I didn't say this right. So we left off in 1987 approximately, or the early 90s, and now it's 2002.
Right,
So-
I was divorced, right.
So you were divorced. Did you already have children at this point?
Yes.
So you're divorced and you end up reconnecting with Mr. Durst. How did you end up reconnecting with him?
I decided to write him. I don't understand. I wrote to him and he responded. I said,
Well, I'm just trying to understand, you haven't seen him, you've really had no relationship with him other than saying hello and goodbye
Right.
through Mr. Chavin. I'm just trying to figure out what was it that led you to recontact him?
well, I was writing at the time, and I did write to him and ask him if he was interested in writing a book, because at one time you wanted to write a book. So I did write a few books, and I contacted him and asked him if he was interested in telling his story. And that's what the first letter is that I sent him.
So had you ever had a personal conversation of any length prior to sending him this letter?
No.
And when you sent him this letter, was this after you became aware that he had been charged with Morris Black's murder and was accused of killing and dismembering him?
It was after.
And you were also aware that he was a suspect in the disappearance of his wife Kathy, is that right?
Yes.
And so in contacting you to write a book, is it fair to say that you were looking to make some money?
In writing a book, yeah, I thought it would certainly be good for a career move. Yeah, so I guess, yes.
So you find Mr. Durst and you send him a letter. What happens after you send him a letter?
He wrote me back and just, asked me questions about what I've written, asked questions about Nick, I don't know exactly the letter, but he did write me back. Honestly, I don't remember the whole content of the letter. It was a long time ago.
Were you a published author at that time?
I self-published.
Had you ever been paid as a reporter or as an author at that point?
Commission on the books that I've written, but like I said, I self-published the book.
Well, so that means, so in essence, you basically wrote a book, paid to publish that book, and then you would have kept whatever sales you made from the book. Is that correct?
Yes, I didn't have to put money out, but it was the same type of thing.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And how much money had you made at that point, approximately?
Oh, honestly, I don't even know. I don't. It wasn't a whole bunch. It wasn't like I was buying cars. It was very little.
Right. Fair to say, ma'am, you were somebody who was interested in potentially becoming a paid author, but you really weren't one yet. Is that fair?
Right.
And Bob Durst had a big story and a big name, and you saw opportunity. Is that right?
Yes.
So you end up contacting him. Did you ever travel to Galveston to visit him while he was in custody,
Yes.
awaiting trial? How often did you visit him?
4 times, maybe, in Galveston, maybe 4.
And did you do this at your own expense?
He paid for me. I paid, and then he paid.
Well,
So it wasn't. I don't know honestly how many times, but I.
Ma'am, if we use your best memory, isn't it correct that in fact Bob Durst primarily paid for you and sometimes your family members to fly down to see
Oh, he
him.
did, yes, he did. He did pay for my sons, yes.
So when you say you paid,
That's, that time, definitely, yeah.
so when you say you paid, ma'am, what you mean is you might have, for one of the trips, paid something of one trip,
Right, okay.
but primarily he was paying the bills, right?
For me to get there, yes.
And was he paying for your food and hotel while you were there?
I paid my own food, probably paid the hotel, yes. I mean, I paid for my food or my travel or,
Now, at this point in time, you had remarried, right?
yes,
Did your husband go with you?
no.
How did you explain that one?
Objection, Your Honor.
Your Honor, can they state a grounds? He's just saying objection, there's no
Argumentative,
grounds.
irrelevant. Totally irrelevant.
Okay.
Rude.
Okay, well, those are all overruled, but it may be 352
There
territory.
you go, Your Honor. Thank you.
You can ask a different question.
Ma'am,
Yes.
so you're going down there to see Mr. Durst. Did your husband, was he aware that you were traveling to see him?
Yes,
Did your husband know that you previously had a romantic interest in Mr. Durst?
Objection, Your Honor. 352.
Overruled. Overruled.
yes,
And was your husband okay with you going down there, given the previous romantic interest you had?
yes,
At one point, you indicated that your sons actually flew down to Galveston as well, is that right?
yes.
Did Mr. Durst actually arrange special treats for you and your children sometimes when you would come down to Galveston?
There was one time that gave them baseball tickets to a baseball game.
He actually arranged with very expensive tickets for you and your sons to see Roger Clemens pitching, is that right?
Yes, that was the baseball game.
And overall, how many times do you think you went down there?
I think I went there 4 times, I mean, maybe 3.
And did you talk to him? Were they interviews? What did you do when you were down there?
I was only down there for the visit. I stayed only a day or 2. I didn't vacation, I just went to visit him.
When you would visit, what would you talk about?
I honestly, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What, mutual friend, like how advertising is, what career path am I taking? Or conversations, like not,
Did the subject of his alleged murder and dismemberment of Morris Black ever come up?
no,
How about the disappearance of his missing wife?
no,
So you're planning on writing a book about him, but you didn't ask about 2 of the main...
no, because he did not agree at the time. And once if he agreed that he was going to write the book, then I would have asked all questions. Right now, I was getting to really know him.
Well, when you say you're getting to really know him, it'd be fair to say that you were getting to know him in a way that was going to get you access to his money.
No,
So while you were down in Galveston, did you eventually get access to some of his money, including his credit cards?
no,
Do you recall telling Andrew Jarecki and Mark Smerling during your March 10, 2014 interview that you handled all of Bob's credit cards while he was in Galveston jail?
no,
So that is not true.
no. He had to buy a gift once, and I didn't have the credit card information. He bought a gift for someone, and that was it.
He would tell you to buy gifts for other people with his money, correct?
Once he asked,
When you were interviewed by Jarecki and Smerling, did you in any way indicate that it was only one time?
I don't remember, but I only remember one time.
While Bob was in custody, did he regularly send you flowers?
Yes, and it used to say happy writing on it.
I thought that you didn't have any agreement to do any writing with him.
He didn't, but he knew I was still trying, whether it was with his book or I was still trying to write.
What other writing assignments did you have at that time?
I tried to take a class in screenwriting.
Fair to say, ma'am, you didn't have any paid writing positions at that time, is that correct?
Correct.
Any of your other platonic friends regularly send you flowers?
Honestly, I don't have that many friends, as I told you once before. I don't, I'm sorry. I have family.
At the time that this was going on, not only was Bob married, were you married, but you were aware that Bob was married as well, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you at all discuss anything relating at that time to pursuing any kind of relationship with each other in the future?
Could you, I'm so sorry. Can
I'll
you-
ask again, sure.
Yeah.
So you're going down and you're visiting, and you're talking about different things. Did the two of you at that time have any discussions about pursuing a romantic relationship in the future?
Objection, Your Honor, to
No.
Your Honor, again, I'm going to ask that.
No.
No, but he's not. He doesn't
the...
state
I said it, you
the
just
ground.
can't hear.
Oh, then if he can speak, what was the objection? I didn't hear it.
It's
Relevance.
overruled.
Oh, okay. If Mr.
The answer
Chesnut,
was no.
I'll speak louder. John.
thank you, I appreciate it,
You got it, buddy.
ma'am. I couldn't hear your answer. Let me ask this again.
No. The answer was no. No,
Right.
I'm not telling you no, you couldn't repeat it. I'm just saying the answer was no.
Okay. So you had originally wanted to date Mr. Durst approximately 12, 13, 15 years earlier. Is that correct? In 19
Yes. Okay, yes, I just had to think because then I say the wrong thing. It's yes.
Right, so now you're down and visiting in Galveston, you're telling me you have no interest in any romantic relationship anymore.
No, honestly, we're building a very strong friendship. I mean, we did.
Did you at all at that point in time, did you ever discuss getting a love nest together?
Yes. But the way I have a term, your term is just different than mine. I just wanted to take care of him.
So in 2002 or 2003, even back then, you were discussing with Mr. Durst the idea that he was going to buy a love nest
Not
for...
back then. No.
Okay,
No, not 2000.
So listen to my question if you can, ma'am. So I'm not asking you about more current things. I'm saying back in 2002, 2003, when Mr. Durst was in custody, did you have discussions back then?
No.
Ma'am, you've got to let me finish the question.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the same question. Sorry.
Did you have discussions back then about you and Mr. Durst getting a place to live together?
No.
Do you know when those conversations first came up?
4 or 5 years ago? Is it-
So 4 or 5 years ago, did they come up before Mr. Durst was arrested in 2015?
Let me just think. I was sending him emails, yes. Before, yes. Before he was arrested, I had sent emails because I wanted him first to come live. It was a house next door to my house, and I wanted him to move. So through the emails, you can see that I kept sending him homes that were right next door to me because I have a very large family, and I thought living close and him being taken care of was important.
And by this time, husband number 3 was now ex-husband number 3, correct?
Just, no, not at the time.
When did he become ex-husband number 3?
Legally not ex-husband number 3.
Oh, okay. When
Okay,
did the two of you separate, or when did
We were
it-
just having issues.
I'm not asking about
And
the
he's
issues.
been very supportive, so I don't.
Ma'am, I'm not asking about the issues. I just want to know, when was it, whether formal or informal, that you and husband number 3 ended up not having a regular marital relationship?
Objection relevance, Your Honor.
Right before, I guess, I'm trying to think. My 5 years, I don't actually remember. 5 years ago, maybe?
Well, So,
Wait, I want to instruct the witness to speak a little louder right into the microphone, pause, and you can take a moment before you answer, and then say it loud and
Might have been
clear.
about 5 years ago.
it was before Mr. Durst was arrested, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Your Honor, will the court take judicial notice that he was arrested on March 14, 2015? Or we can get maybe a stipulation.
Is that in the court file?
Yes, Your Honor. That is. I can ask counsel. Counsel, will you stipulate that that's the date of arrest?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, then I'll take judicial notice.
Ma'am, would you agree that as you sit up here today testifying, that you have a financial motivation to keep yourself in good graces with Bob Durst?
No, it's unconditional. Really is unconditional. It's not.
Okay, listen to my question though, ma'am. I'm not asking you what it is that's causing you to testify, et cetera. I'm merely asking you, would you
Objection,
agree?
Your Honor, she's testifying because I think we got a subpoena.
Wait, well,
What?
I don't understand the objection, but she did actually answer the question, Mr. Lewin?
Yeah.
She answered it and she gave an
Okay,
explanation.
ma'am,
Yes.
how much money has Bob Durst given you over the years?
Over the years,
Yeah.
300,000.
In February of 2015, right before his arrest, he sent you a check for $38,000, correct?
I'm gonna actually say, believe it or not, I don't remember.
If you testified previously, or if you stated previously that you had been sent $38,000
Then,
in February of 2015, would that be accurate?
I just right now don't really remember.
In March
Okay,
of
excuse me a second. I want to instruct the witness. She's actually continuing to speak and mumbling a little bit,
Oh.
and I want you to speak clearly, and then to speak clearly. All right? Thanks. You may ask your next question.
I apologize, Your Honor, I cannot hear the, I can't hear the mumbling. I just, when it stops.
But I
Yeah.
do. I
Yeah.
know she's speaking. She's on the witness stand under oath, and I want it to be on the record. The thing she says should be on the record, and that's. I know you didn't hear it.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you now.
Thank you,
Go
Your Honor.
ahead.
Ma'am, in March of 2015, did Bob Durst send you another check, this time for $300,000?
Yes.
So when you said he's giving you $300,000, ma'am, a moment ago I said, how much has he given you in total? And you said $300,000. Ma'am, that's incorrect, right?
Okay, I forgot about the 38. It's
Well-
probably for my son, so, yeah.
Well, let's continue, ma'am. He sent you one check for $300,000. Trust me, I'm going to go through all of it. But he sent you one check in 2015 in March for $300,000.
Okay.
He's continued to send you money up until very recently. Is that correct?
I have not received a check.
Well,
I have not received a check. Nope.
So, ma'am, so there's been no payments. I'll get there. There have been no payments by Mr. Durst or his representatives in the last 2 years regarding.
Honestly, I don't know. I gave some of the bills that I had that were old bills that had to be paid, and I gave them to my attorney. That's what I did. I gave them to my attorney, and I still get them, and my bills are still a little late. But,
Ma'am, do you have an attorney who you just give bills to and he pays them?
he told me to hand over what I owed, and some of it was paid and some of it wasn't.
Well,
And
ma'am-
I didn't ask. Honestly, I
Well-
didn't ask. I didn't see a check. I see that it's still a couple of months late, some of it, but I didn't ask, and I didn't see any money pass through my hands. Not a check, nothing since, whatever you said, 2015.
So I want to go back, ma'am. I asked you originally, how much has he sent you, and I want to include your family in total. So I'm going to ask that again. I want you to take a moment, and I want you to try to think right now, in total, how much money has Bob Durst, either directly or indirectly, given to you or your family members, in total?
Maybe there was 15,000 more in the bills that I had. I really don't know exactly. I mean, I don't.
At the time that Mr. Durst sent you that $300,000 check, he told you he was going to send that to you in advance of his arrest, correct?
I really don't remember. Honestly, I don't remember. I didn't know he was getting arrested either, to be honest with you. So until Andrew Jarecki called me, other than that, I didn't know. He said he was going to send me something.
Okay, so listen to my question, ma'am.
That's what he said.
I'm not asking you whether he knew he was going to be arrested. I'm asking you, prior to his arrest on March 14, 2015, you were aware that he was going to be sending you a large check, correct?
A check. I didn't know the amount. That's it. I didn't.
And ma'am, when you were interviewed on March 15, 2015, I'm going to get to this in a moment, but on that date, investigator Joe Becerra from the New York State Police showed up at your house with no notice to collect what are known as the Giordano boxes. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I'm going to go into that in more detail, but I want to ask you, did you at any point mention to investigator Becerra on the 15th when he talked to you, hey, by the way, I'm supposed to be getting a check from Bob? You didn't tell him that, did you?
No. Did he ever ask me? I don't.
Well, you agree, on the 16th, he came back and re-interviewed you again the next day, correct?
Okay.
Would you agree that you did not mention to investigator Becerra the next day that Mr. Durst had sent you?
No, no. No, it wasn't. No, why would I say something?
Well,
no.
You agree that investigator Becerra and Special Agent Eric Perry from the FBI, that they were asking you questions about your contacts with Mr. Durst, correct?
Correct.
Ma'am, are you telling us that it was a pure accident that you did not intentionally fail to mention this check that was coming? Is that your testimony?
Yes, I didn't do anything purposely. Is that what you mean? I didn't purposely not say, oh, by the way, I'm getting a check. I didn't.
Ma'am, do you recall, ma'am, being asked about the check 2 days later on March 18th, 2015 by Special Agent Eric Perry? You remember him from the FBI?
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm.
Do you recall him asking you why you didn't tell Joe Becerra the other day about the strike that? Do you recall being asked during the March 18, 2015 interview with Special Agent Perry, do you recall you mentioning at all anything again about that check?
Your Honor, objection. If he's going to refresh her recollection, should we show her what he's referring to?
Overruled.
Ma'am? To the best of your memory, you didn't mention anything about...
No, I didn't mention anything about money.
And would it be your testimony that if you didn't mention it, that was an accident, it was not intentional?
Objection, misstates her testimony.
Overruled. She can explain herself.
If anybody would have asked me about, I didn't withhold any information purposely. Everyone asked me about the boxes. Those were the answers. That was it. No one ever asked me. It wasn't withholding information.
Ma'am, have you at times stated, when asked about large sums of money that you had from Mr. Durst, that you were merely, quote, holding money for him?
I wanted to put money down on a piece of property. That was it. I thought it would have been a good idea for him to move up to the Hudson Valley. And I would send him, like I said, houses or property, and that's was my plan.
So what was your understanding, ma'am, of what that $300,000 was supposed to be used for?
Well, it was, Bob couldn't understand how expensive college loans were. And it was exactly 12.75 in interest. And at the time he said, why don't you pay the boys' school? Because it was almost $100,000, at least $100,000 in student loans. And then Tommy was moving to Louisiana and told me to pay LSU, whatever apartment he needed, pay up my bills, and start fresh.
So, ma'am,
Fresh start.
I want to understand this because it sounds like you're saying two different things. Was the money for you to put down for a house for Mr. Durst, ma'am, let me finish. Or was it money that you were supposed to use for you and your family as you saw fit?
It was for both. It was a lot of money, so it was for different things.
And I assume then, since not all of it was supposed to be for you,
Right.
that you put it into an account that Mr. Durst would have had access to.
Wasn't withholding it. He didn't have access to the account, but if he wanted it, I had it. I wrote every single thing down, where the money went, or always. I didn't.
So you took this money and you put it into your personal account where you could spend it as you wished. Is that right?
Yes, it's trust.
Some of that money was supposed to be a loan. Is that correct?
Yes, I wanted to make it a loan.
It's been 6 years. How much of that $300,000 have you paid back?
Didn't ask me for anything back.
Well, ma'am, you just told me it was supposed to be a loan, and now you're saying that he didn't ask for anything back. Was it supposed to be a loan, or was it supposed to be a gift?
He wanted it as a gift, and I told him that I think I should have the boys pay their share for a responsibility. So.
Well, ma'am, let me ask you, you said that, a moment ago, you said it was for you to start your life over.
Right.
Do you recall that testimony?
Right, and I said we had just different opinions. He really didn't worry about me giving anything back, and I just felt that if the boys had to use it to pay, they should still give something, just being responsible.
So let me repeat myself. How much of the money, that $300,000 that you used or your boys used, has been paid back to Mr. Durst?
I sent, I think, the 2 checks that week, and he was arrested and told me not to send anything anywhere.
Ma'am, those 2 checks were for a total of $2,000, is that right?
Yes, it was 1,000, supposed to be 1,000 a week, and then, yeah.
So, in 6 years, you made an effort within a week after receiving the check to pay back $2,000, which was actually not paid back, and then since then, zero. Is that correct?
Your Honor, mischaracterizes her testimony. She said that he told him.
But, Your Honor, I'm going to ask, I'm trying not to speak in objections, but
Right.
Mr. Chesnoff, everyone has been a speaking objection, so.
Well, no, they're just sort of along the grounds.
Well, they're.
But be succinct with the grounds for an objection.
So, ma'am, did you understand my question? Let me just ask it again to save time here. So, in 6 years, there has been zero actually paid back, is that right?
It was the 2 checks, and that was it.
Those
Right.
2 checks were never cashed, correct?
No, they were cash.
Okay, so there have been, and those were from your sons, is that right?
Yes,
So your sons paid back $1,000, $2,000 total, and you paid back nothing, is that right?
yes.
You were asked about this, is that correct, during your 2017 testimony, is that right?
Yes.
And at the time, you were asked what the total amount that you'd been given was. Do you recall that you said that it was $350,000?
Yes, yes, after we just did the math now, so yes.
Well, my question to you would be, ma'am, if you remembered specifically there was a $300,000 check, are you telling this jury that when I first asked you that question, you only remembered one check that Bob Durst had ever given you, that $300,000?
Yes, I just, until you reminded me, I said I didn't remember, and if you said that's what it was, I honestly don't remember, but I'm sure you know, and then I'm agreeing with you.
And ma'am, when I asked you that question, you understood that the bills that you've been giving to your lawyer, some of which have been paid, you understand that that is being paid by Mr. Durst or his associates, correct?
I assumed.
Well,
okay, so I assumed.
well, ma'am, okay, so why is it that you decided to give checks to your lawyer? What was your lawyer supposed to do with those checks that you were giving him?
What checks? Wait a minute.
I'm sorry, my mistake, excuse me. What was your lawyer supposed to do with the bills that you were giving to him?
He just told me not to stress, just to give him the things that were very, very late and had to be taken care of.
And was it your understanding, ma'am, that your lawyer was paying those bills himself?
I never asked him where it came from, who wrote a check. I didn't see anything, I didn't ask.
Ma'am, so you're telling this jury that you have a lawyer that's being paid for by Mr. Durst. That lawyer is telling you, just give me these bills, and you're saying you had no idea that Mr. Durst is behind paying them.
I could assume anything, but I didn't see anything.
Well,
Like I said, I didn't ask. It was.
So, ma'am, so when you say you could assume, is it fair to say that it was your belief, although you didn't see any proof, it was your belief that you were giving those bills to your lawyer to pass on to Mr. Durst and his representatives to be paid? Is that correct?
I guess. Okay. Well,
Did you ever have any discussions with Mr. Durst while he was in jail about this exact issue?
yes.
And did Mr. Durst tell you on September 30th, 2016, that he had told his lawyers to give you as much money as you wanted to do whatever you wanted? Do you recall that?
I don't remember. I really don't remember.
Mark,
Let's, why don't we take our break?
can I just play this one clip, Ron?
Okay, one clip and then a
Thank you.
break.
People's next in order, Mr. Milius.
That'd be 207, People's 207.
All
I
right.
assume you're asking for SG 071. Good.
This is September 20th, 2016, jail call.
Yeah, it is.
All right. I spoke to Garcia. I told him that I wanted you to have as much money, do whatever it is you wanted to do. Thank you. In terms of your life.
Oh.
I can ask her about it after the break, Your Honor.
Thank you, and 207A will need that, which will be a written version of that. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take our break until 3:20. Do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. Chambers to impeachment preceding the relevant portion of the testimony. I told Mr. Chesnoff I would overrule that, and that's under Evidence Code 320. The court controls the order of proof. The court regulates the order of proof. But go ahead. You may make a record.
No, Your Honor, just quite succinctly stated our issue with it, and the court did indicate that if they're not able to show that they were supposed to be able to impeach, that the court would strike the testimony.
That's right, I would strike the testimony. Already, though, there's been testimony about holding money for Mr. Durst for some, and I'm seeing this as possibly connected to some other evidence of holding money so that one can be a fugitive. I don't know if that's where you're going, Mr. Durst, but
it should be.
Mr. Lewin, about Mr. Durst, sorry.
That's going to be separate monies, but yes, this all is going to combine. At the end of this, we're going to be able to show the witness will be thoroughly and completely impeached.
But well, so if that's all there is, what we've heard so far, of course, I would strike
Thank you.
Strike it.
And the point that should be made, Your Honor, is none of this $300,000 or $338,000 has anything to do with any effort to escape. So I want to focus the court most respectfully on that.
All right.
Just make an inquiry, Your Honor,
Yeah.
as to how a witness is called just in order to impeach the witness.
No, I would strike the testimony, of course not. I
But
would
it's
strike
already
it.
in. If you strike it, it's like this skunk that's been thrown in the
Well,
jury.
we'll see, because, I mean, I wouldn't allow this had I not heard her testify before, had I not been aware of the fact that she is testifying to incriminating information. I suspect that Mr. Lewin is not simply bringing her here to humiliate her, but actually to prove something, and something that goes to an element of the charges. I expect to hear that. If not, I'll strike the testimony. But I think it's an interesting tactic to impeach, and unusual to impeach before that testimony, but I think that's possible because we've had testimony before. We know what's coming, and I think it may be a more effective way for the jury to evaluate the testimony of this particular witness. So I'm allowing it.
Thank you, Your Honor.